teachers, and welcome to Learning is Not Quiet presents Adverbs, Prepositions, and Interjections, and other parts of speech. Today I am focusing, very important, specifically on adverbs, prepositions, and interjections. It is also kind of a cumulative activity to all of the other parts of speech, but I teach this as a finish to nouns, adjectives, conjunctions, and verbs. So I have separate products on those 4 parts of speech. This one is really focusing on these 3 main ones. So make sure you ask me any questions. If you have any questions about purchasing or any, questions about the directions for any of these products, I'm here to help you and want to support you in every way that I can. In this video, I'm going to talk about how I teach these specific 3 parts of speech in my classroom. I am also going to talk about some of the strengths of the Teachers Pay Teachers activity I have on my store, as well as some pitfalls you may want to avoid. I am also going to emphasize some ways to differentiate this so that you can meet the needs of all of your students. And so without further ado, let's begin. If you're watching this video, it's likely because you have purchased or are interested in purchasing this product. One for the digital version is coming as well, or this Apples to Adverbs game. And I'm going to start with this Apples to Adverbs game. Just be mindful that if you do purchase this, this Apples to Adverbs game is included in the other product. So do not double purchase. And again, I'm always here to answer any questions that you may have. Please reach out to me. Search for Learning is Not Quiet. If you are a teacher or parent and are interested in purchasing any of these activities, links are found in the description to this product and any others that might go along well with this product, as well as to my entire store where you can find hundreds of different activities to teach your students loudly. So I'm going to start with this game, Apples to Adverbs, and I will say I've tweaked this game a little bit over the years, but this is one of the games I've had the longest in my classroom. Believe it or not, I actually made this game when I was getting my undergraduate degree and doing my student teaching. So that is how old this game is for me. What is involved in this game? There are 2 sets of cards. There are these green story cards and these red adverb cards. Now, this is based off of a very similar game that I'm not going to mention that sounds very similar to Apples to Adverbs cards, and so it plays very similarly. So what you do is you cut out all of these cards and you get 2 decks, one of green apples and one of red apples. Please note that I do not cut these out myself anymore. I go to middle schools and high schools and ask if anyone needs service hours. That is a great way to laminate your stuff, send it off to a student who needs those service hours. That helps them. It helps you save some time. Make sure you work smarter, not harder. Don't work harder, not smarter. Work smarter, not harder. So with that, I've got my cards all cut out. I'm ready to go. One way to use this is just to pull one of these out and say, if I had to eat one food every day for the year, it would be, and have students write a whole story in their writing notebook about that. The way that we're going to do it is you flip over a card, and the person who's the storyteller, they're not going to lay any of the red cards in their hand. These you pass out, I believe, 5 to each person, or 4 or 5. And they hold them in their hand like this, and they're all listening to the person tell their story. You also need a timer for this game. You flip it over. The storyteller has to tell a story for 1 minute, 2 minutes, and that's definitely a way you can differentiate this, make it longer, to make it harder, make it shorter, to make it easier. So, I always say too, if the student sits there and goes, and can't tell a story for whatever the amount of time is, they automatically lose the green card and it gets shuffled back into the deck, because that does happen with students who are a little bit indecisive. So this person would tell a story. If I had to eat one food for every day for a year, it would be. And I would say, if I, Mrs. Benavides, was giving this answer, I would say, when I was a first-year teacher, I was really low on money. I had maybe a couple $100s in my bank account that I'd saved up from a couple years of working 2 jobs in college and in the summer. And I went to the store and I purchased for myself shells and cheese and pasta sauce, because that was the cheapest recipe I knew of. And I bought it in bulk, and I made so many copies of it that I actually had the privilege of eating it for 2 months straight, nothing else, to save money. And so I have experienced this, and as much as I wouldn't choose to eat that every day, it was a pretty good meal for 2 months, and that's one of the only foods I could stomach eating every day for a whole year. So that's my story, right? So then the other students would go along and say something like, inquisitively, I find that, or no. I might ask inquisitively what type of cheese you used in your ricotta shells. Or kiddingly, I wouldn't eat that ever if my life depended on it. So you see how students are giving a summary sentence or something related to what the reader said. And if they can't, they don't get to lay a card, they don't get to participate, and this person gets to decide who gave the best summary, the best explanation, the best add-on to their story, and they get the green card as a positive point. So this is a great literacy center. It's super fun because it's creative, it's higher level thinking skills. It gets kids to think about writing without actually having to put pencil to paper. It's a great brainstorming activity. It's also a great I'm finished activity. I put them in a baggie, I put them in the back of my classroom, and when kids are done, they can just grab it and they can play at their desks. So that's how that works. Now we're going to move on to the products included in this bundle. And again, I like to think of grammar and reading strategies as drawers in my brain. And I want to fill it with all kinds of experiences to fill up that drawer so that students have all of these things to build on. This product is a little bit different in its organization just because there's so much included. So you can kind of organize this however you want to. Most of mine are on a 5-day week. This one, probably you could do in 5 days. It may take a few extra days, so just be mindful of that. This is a good one to do after you've taught nouns, conjunctions, verbs, and adjectives, and then use this as like the week before Thanksgiving, the week before Christmas, the week before those kinds of things, like just as a finishing up shorter weeks time period. That's what I do. So the first thing you're going to see is this, where's the rubber duck? And this is related to prepositions because prepositions are words that describe position. When you think of prepositions, remember this exercise. Write as many words as you can think of where the rubber duck is on the chair and explain where it really is. For example, the rubber duck is on the chair. I developed this activity because I found that students really struggled to remember what prepositions were. That was like the hardest part of speech for them to remember. So I did this whole activity where I picked a class clown. You can totally steal this idea. And let's say their name is Marcus. And I said, Marcus, and he would go sit on a chair. And I would have Marcus move all around the chair, and I would give students different ways to describe where Marcus was. Marcus is on the chair. Marcus is above the chair. Marcus is near the chair. Marcus is touching the chair. Different things. How are all the ways? And this is, again, an activity that helps us understand what a preposition is before we really dive into it. Other things is it doesn't have to be even related to the chair. Marcus is above the floor. And then once students do that, they can kind of do this rubber duck activity easier. And now when I have students and we're working on an activity that involves sentence diagramming your stuff and they're having trouble remembering what a preposition is, or if a word is a preposition, I just say, where's the rubber duck? And that's a pretty good connection point, and they kind of get it from there. The next activity here is a interactive notebook. And for this one, as you can see in my student example, they're cutting out these words that are prepositions and they're matching them to the rubber duck. So the rubber duck is over or above, the rubber duck is under or below, the rubber duck is away, the rubber duck is before. So it kind of gets all of these things together with it. Next, we move on to adverbs. And for this one, we're identifying as many words with ly as possible. And again, we're brainstorming, we're adding activities, we're adding ideas to the concept of adverbs. For this one, trick is I like to put a 2-minute timer, 5-minute timer, whatever amount of time you have in front of my class, and have them write as many adverbs as they can. And then we can do it category style where they cross it off as we go through them. Again, as much time as you're willing to devote to this. Don't make the good the enemy. Don't make the good the enemy of the best. I think that's the phrase. So this is what a student example looks like. Notice they didn't finish up the whole page. That's okay. It just showed them that they could finish up the whole page, and it gets them thinking of what adverbs are. And when they think of adverbs, I want them to think of this page that's covered in ly. Lolly, 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 get your adverbs here. If you can use School of Rock, that's a great video that helps connect this as well. So adverbs, this is a coloring page. Modify or describe verbs, adjectives, or other adverbs. As I've said a lot of times, I used to believe in everybody doing the coloring pages. I no longer think that way. They're a great extra credit activity. They're a great when I'm finished activity. I make a bunch of copies. I put them in the back of my classroom, and students can grab them if they want extra credit to do at home, or if they finish something early and want something to color and work on in class. What's great about coloring pages is I don't feel like they're a waste of time. what they do is they give students a visualization of a concept. They can picture that page in their mind because they've had to really focus on it for a good amount of time. And it also adds color, which makes things easier to remember. So that's why I like the coloring pages. Use or don't use, those are kind of the options around it. They're also good anchor charts if you blow them up and have someone or a group of people color it. Okay, I love this part. So there are good adverbs and bad adverbs. And so this is a quote from Stephen King. It has the students write the main idea of what Stephen King is saying. And I have totally used this in my own improvement of writing. And when I edit other people's writing, I have them control, find, look for words that end in ly. And then they can make that decision for each of them. Is this a good adverb or a bad adverb? And especially if you have more advanced students, that's a great way to go about doing this. So this is a student example, and again, they're choosing if those adverbs are overpowering or just right. Next, we move on to interjections. I'm moving fast because we're covering 3 different parts of speech. There's a lot included here. Interjections are exclamation words that show a lot of emotion. Take a look at each of the emojis below and write the interjection that belongs to each. With this, there's another great Schoolhouse Rock video, and that really exposes students to what an interjection is before you move into this, and especially the grammar rules that surround interjections. That's great to play before you do this. I'm going to show you a pitfall that happened when I did this. So I didn't play that video first. I played it after, and you can see the students are writing kind of what the emoji means, like wink and cool, I am sad. Those aren't really interjections, and it was fine. After this, I had the student, I was like, do you think this person is shouting, wink? And they were like, no. Do you think they're exclaiming that, saying that? No. Well, then it's not really an interjection. What might they be saying? And that really helped them expand on interjections from there. So that was a pitfall, but just kind of a way to work around that pitfall if you're seeing that with your students. Okay, moving on. We are now moving into the more direct standardized testing kind of stuff. For these, you're going to answer the question by identifying the part of speech that's underlined. Very typical standardized test, sentence diagramming. This is a great bell ringer, great assessment, good pre-post test if you want to do that before the week and at the end of the week. The next one, this kind of takes a lower level thinking skill and elevates it to the next level. So what you're doing here is you're coloring the image by using the key for interjections, adverbs, proper nouns, common plural nouns, common singular nouns, prepositions, verbs, adjectives, and pronouns. And so this is, again, a lower level thinking activity, but it is adding a wealth of experiences to this idea. Okay. And I know I said I covered this before break. This is the lesson I throw in wherever. One year, I was motivated enough and I planned out my schedule so that I was able to do this song at 9/11. But even if you don't do this on 9/11, this is Me in the Sky, and it's from the musical Come From Away It's from the musical Come From Away, which is the story of a town in Newfoundland who took in a bunch of people who were flying on airplanes on the day of the September 11th attacks in 2001, but were not obviously in the planes that landed in the Pentagon, the World Trade Center, or in the field in Pennsylvania. And so this is a wonderful story of compassion, and it's a great historical fiction kind of text. Really, really excellent. My classes had many awesome discussions. One of the things I think is that, I was alive during 9/11, obviously, and experienced it and remember it. I lived in DC for a very long time. And so I know a lot of people who have very personal experiences, fears, losing people on September 11th because they worked in the Pentagon, or at least were in danger for their lives from working in the Pentagon. One of the things I don't think we do well is we assume that kids know what 9/11 is. And I have found with my 5th graders that most of them have never heard of it by the time I talk about it for the first time, or they have some vague idea of it. So it's really important to teach this directly, and this song does that well. So kind of with this, I would have them highlight in different colors all the different parts of speech that we've talked about. That's definitely one way you can do it. I always have them read it by themselves the first time through, look for good word choice, visualize by drawing pictures, and you can kind of see that, right? This person is drawing small little doodles of all the different stanzas that happen. An avid strategy is to number the stanzas. They're highlighting good word choice. And then they are answering this kind of test prep, sentence stems, and I take that as a assessment grade. And this is kind of my student example too. Thank you so much for watching. There's so many other products available in my Teachers Pay Teacher store. If you liked this product, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for teaching the next generation of readers and writers. You are my heroes. Adios.